Hello again YouTube, Mad Dog here. This video is a continuation of part 1 of the bug out bag Bergen series, and if you've watched the previous video you'll have seen me taking out this, which is my first aid kit. It's very comprehensive, as you can see, proper overkill, but for me this is just a personal opinion that first aid kit is very important and shouldn't be overlooked. It's one of them things that, you know, I'd rather have too much of it and not use it than not have enough of it and need it. So let's crack on with it. So the bag itself, just a simple double compartment bag. I've labelled it up both sides so that anybody that needs to attend you know where to look for your kit. So we'll go into the main compartment first. Now in here there is stacks and stacks of equipment. So what I've got firstly on the top is some of these instant cold packs. So anybody that knows, that's done any proper hiking before in the past, that if you get a sprain, a muscle injury, your calf is torn or your hamstring or etc., your shoulders, whatever it may be, you know, the recommendation is rest, ice, compress and elevate. That's, you know, I ain't going to go into a first aid lesson as such, but okay, so you can rest it, you can elevate it and compress, but what about ice? Carry a cool pack with you, you know, just crack it, snap it, crunch it up, strap it onto the affected area, rest it and compress, and it'll help alleviate muscle sprains, that type of injury. So I keep a couple of these, and this is off subject a little bit really, but if the ingredients are with ammonium nitrate, for those of you that know, you can make other things with ammonium nitrate. Enough said. Things that go bang in the night and all that. So moving on to the main kit, I've got a complete grab carry first aid kit to include tape, scissors, tweezers, there's some Germaline antiseptic gel in there, different field dressing bandages, and a strip of self-adhesive, obviously, you know, sticking plaster type thing. I think there's some sutures in here as well, you know, temporary stitches, etc. Again, glow sticks. Always carry glow sticks in my kits, all my kits, so that you're not struggling in the dark. Paracetamol, aspirin. I recommend carrying some aspirin because if you or somebody else has had a heart attack, as daft as it sounds, it can happen at any age. Half an aspirin placed underneath the tongue will thin the blood and help alleviate the symptoms of heart attack whilst you're getting medical help and getting them people evac'd out of there. So it's worth carrying some aspirin, lots more bandages, loads of Germaline antiseptic cream, Radian B. This is like the heat rub, muscle rub, to alleviate aches and strains at the end of a hard day's journey. Even if you haven't got an injury, it's great morale boosting to give yourself a good rub over with that stuff on your legs, on your feet, on your calves, your shoulders, anywhere that's aching from a hard day's graft. Some sterile wipes. I've got absorbent field dressings, which also double up as great fire tinder, as you already know. Waspies, it's a spray that you can spray on most, especially over here in the UK, most insect bites, anti-inflammatory bites. I've got different drugs here, some more aspirin. These are for if you suffer hay fever like I do, or used to, back in the day when I was a young man. I used to suffer hay fever and I used to have an injection once a year. No good being out in the field and suffering hay fever. But since, you know, in Civvy Street, I carry antihistamines because of the hay fever. alcohol-free wipes to keep everything nice and clean. Some more paracetamol. Burnies, obviously self-explanatory, an aerosol that you can spray onto burns, including sunburn. Very handy to have, you know, who knows, you know, if you have an accident with your campfire, a spark goes onto your tent set on fire, you get burnt, etc. You've got some first aid for that. Instructions. Always carry first aid instructions for when you're tired and fatigued, so you know what you're doing. These tablets here, I can't pronounce the name, I'm not even going to attempt it, but basically they are for diarrhea relief tablets, capsules. So if you've been drinking bad water, eating bushcraft food, you might get a dose of the trots. Carry some relief for diarrhea. Nothing worse than having a dose of the trots when you're hiking. Finger dressings, because you know you're dealing with knives, etc. You're going to get cuts and scrapes. Another burn trauma kit. It's like a gel pad that you put onto serious burns. Keeps the wound hydrated and cool. Different sticking plasters, self-adhesive sticking plasters. First aid field kit. Again, another glow stick. Some potassium permagnetate. You know, it's great for sterilising water, making a diluted version of a antibacterial antibiotic for wounds, and firelighting. Marker pen. I've also got a Sharpie in the other compartment. That's the main section. So this side of the bag, I have something that you might not have thought of, maybe sun cream. As daft as it sounds, if you're in a hot environment, or even over in the UK where you're walking against the coastal areas, whatever, you're going to get sunburn. Take some high factor sunscreen with you. You know, sunburn is painful and it can be serious long term, so protect yourself. Take a little bottle of sun cream with you and get yourself protected. I've got an emergency survival blanket for, you know, if you get hypothermia, or the other extreme where you're really hot, you can reflect the heat with that just as well. Small knife in case you need to cut off clothing to access a wound, you know, cut bootlaces, etc. in an emergency to get at an injury, even if it's not your injury. Sharpie, the old Sharpie pen, to mark your casualties in priority order and to let other people know what, if any, medication has been administered. So, and again, you can light a fire with it. I've got some glycerine here, which, okay, it's not necessarily medical, it's a quick one shot, extra calories if you need it, but in conjunction with the potassium permagnetate, again, firelighting. So that's a bit of a digression. And some more surgical tape. You know, it's like, it doesn't have to be pretty, all this first aid stuff that you can learn in the manuals, and you know, I've done it for many years, the St John's and the Red Cross first aid courses. They teach you the correct method, but in a real situation, apply that dressing, stem the bleeding, lashings of tape, let somebody else sort it out professionally. Just do your best to stem the bleeding. Doesn't have to be pretty. Get some tape. That concludes the first aid kit that I carry, other than this little pouch here. And this is, as daft as it sounds, some antacids. So if you're out in the bush and you've eaten or drank something that doesn't agree with you and it gives you heartburn and you've still got to walk, march, yomp on, nothing worse than having heartburn. Get some antacids in there as well. So you can just pop a couple of them in, relax your belly. So that's pretty much it for my first aid kit, the main first aid kit. The second item, which I've covered in a previous video, is this little packet, and this is first aid for your feet. So just let me move all this out of the way. There's a lot of stuff here, as you can see when it's all out, but surprisingly it weighs very little, so in my opinion well worth carrying. So we'll cut to this little fella. I've done a video like I say before on this, but I'll quickly zip through it again. So again, more tapes, a good pair of scissors, some of this stuff which is moleskin. So if you've got heel blisters, foot blisters, you cut some of this off and it's like an extra layer of skin that you can add, you know, onto your foot, and the sweat and etc. doesn't affect it. It's really, really good stuff. Highly recommend that moleskin for anybody that gets blisters or warts. The foot powder, antifungal, antibacterial. Get some of that on each night, feel good factor. Take your socks off, dry your feet, wash them, dry them, get some of this on. It stops athlete's foot, which is a precursor to trench foot, as we all know, which can stop you dead in your tracks. Never good. So another little tip, carry some foot powder. The scissors also can be used for cutting your nails. As daft as it sounds, your toenails, if they're left to grow, will harbour bacteria, encouraging the onset of trench foot or athlete's foot. So keep your nails short. Always keep your toenails short before going on a long hike, and during if you're out for a long time. So again, the scissors are useful for that. Petroleum jelly, Vaseline, great for lining the entire foot when you've got your socks on if you are experiencing hot spots and blisters, and again useful for fire lighting, as we all know. These are made by Zippo, but the proper foot or toe sticking plasters to go around hot spots again for blisters. Some sterilised pins, because I know people don't recommend you pop blisters, but if you ever take your boot off and you've got a blister, they expand like wano and you can't get your boot back on, which stops you functioning. So take some sterilised pins with you, and if you have to, pop the blister just to enable you to get your boot back on. You know, it's like a last resort. And then some of this stuff which is Compeed, it's like a little lipstick thing. You know, you take it out and it screws up and down like a lipstick. And again, it's to prevent blisters from happening in the first place. So, you know, on the ball of your foot, the heel of your foot, coat it in that before going on your journey to prevent the blisters in the first place. So that's just a quick overlook of the foot care kit. And I also have here a couple of insoles for my size of boot, which is size 8, I'm only a small bloke. So if you are experiencing discomfort, chuck a couple of insoles in, make yourself comfortable. You know, it's dead simple. So anyway, that's a quick overview of my first aid kit. There's a lot of stuff here, as you can see, more than you'll need hopefully for 2 days. But if you're stuck out in a proper emergency situation, you'll be glad that you've taken this stuff. I can't personally emphasise enough the importance of this. You know, with my background and my past, I've seen situations where I wished I'd have had more stuff, to be honest. But go on, that's a story for another day. So I hope you find some of this useful. This is like part 2 of the series of the contents of my bug out bag. Thank you all very much for watching. Take care out there. Mad Dog signing off. Yeah.